What's going on, guys? It's your boy King Chase here from Royal Slice Gaming, and today we're doing another Pokemon team video. I've got about 3 more ideas for these that I've come up with recently and I figured about doing. One of these was inspired by the comments, which is the one that we're doing today. And today's video, we're talking about the Fire Force Squadron 8 Pokemon team. So let's go ahead and get into this. Okay, so I will preface this by saying that I don't know a crazy amount about Fire Force. I've been sort of reading the manga recently and not really watched the anime that much, mainly just reading the manga. But I know a little bit about the characters, so I don't know too much details, so I will explain what I do know about the characters, and we'll go on from there. The first person we're going to talk about is Vulcan. Vulcan is technically one of the newest members of Squadron 8, and he's like a regular guy, sort of like Obie, but we'll get to Obie when we get to Obie. But Vulcan, he's just a regular human. He doesn't really have any fire abilities. He's not a first or second or third generation fire person. And so for him, I gave him the steel type. He's one of those characters that tinkers with things, build things, and I just figured steel type would be best for him. So we're starting off his design. So if you look at his giant skull mask, in comparison to that, I gave him an Aggron. And then I gave him a Klinklang, a Magnezone, Lucario, Corviknight, and Metagross. So I gave him these. Aggron, like I said, was for the skull mask. Klinklang and Magnezone were because of that tinkering thing, putting things together, building new things. Lucario is just another strong steel type that reflects his fighting abilities and things like that. And in the Corviknight and Metagross were just a few extra ones that I needed to fill out the steel type team, but I just think also fit with his design and different sort of combat abilities that he's used in the manga. Next up is our first third generation fire user. Her name is Tamaki. She is a combination of an actual fighter and a priest, and her fighting ability turns her basically into a fire cat. So with that being said, I gave her a bunch of different cat Pokemon, and her main typing is normal because that's where a lot of the cats come from. So first up, we've got a Persian, a Delcatty, a Purugly, a Chinchou, an Audino, and a female Indeedee. I gave her the Persian, Delcatty, and Purugly because they are all cats. That's basically all the cats that we have in the Pokemon game. The Chinchou, Audino, and Indeedee were just sort of like fluff for what she needed. They fit with her personality because she is basically in the Fire Force world. The fire abilities are basically like psychic manipulations, basically. That's why I gave her an Indeedee. The Audino and Chinchou are basically just other sort of like jokey characters, sort of like how she is. She's one of the more jerky characters within the show. Yeah, I think those will fit her personality of like showing off that she's a cat while also showing her psychic abilities to create fire. Alright, next up we've got Arthur, and his typing is electricity. Now, before you go off crazy, I know he uses plasma, but we don't really have a plasma type in Pokemon, and I can't really give everybody fire type, so I gave him electricity because that's the closest thing I could find to be that. So for his team, we've got an Ampharos, a Luxray, a Vikavolt, an Emolga, an Electivire, and a Raichu. So I gave him a few of these. There's one, specifically the Electivire, which I'll get into when I talk about the next character. But the other guys are just like people that represent him. So Arthur is a very physical fighter. He uses a sword a lot. He is in his own little world, his own little knight. So that's why I gave him a Luxray, because to me Luxray is like the guard dog, basically, of that. I gave him a Raichu and an Emolga because he is a joke. He has jokey moments with his character, and I feel like those two were the best like jokey ones. And then Ampharos and Vikavolt are just two other strong electric type Pokemon. Alright, next up is the main character Shinra. For his team, it's an Arcanine, Typhlosion, Magmortar, Darmanitan, Cinderace, and Rapidash. So I gave him the Arcanine and the Cinderace because he's mainly uses his feet to fight, and he's a very physical, fast character, and they're one of the fastest fire types in the game. I also gave him a Typhlosion and a Darmanitan because of his fire output ability, they are one of the strongest fire types in the game. And they just like have physically showing that they are fire type. Typhlosion's got it around his neck, around his quill, and Darmanitan's got it on his wrists. And the Rapidash is just like the Cinderace meant to say. He's also a fast physical attacker. And with the Magmortar, that's the sort of thing between Shinra and Arthur, is they're kind of rivals, so they go back and forth and fight with each other. So I gave Shinra the Magmortar and then Arthur the Electivire because they're sort of rivals in the Pokemon world. They fight each other just like Shinra and Arthur will fight each other. Alright, next up is Iris. She is not a fire manipulator. She is the main priest in, or priestess I should say, in Squadron 8. And her purpose is to help guide the Infernals after they die. A little dark, but you know, it's okay. So for her typing is basically fairy type. I gave her a Florges, a Togekiss, an Azumarill, a Mawile, a Mimikyu, and a Magearna. So we'll get into a few of these. The Florges and the well, I'll just start with the Florges. The Florges is sort of like a flower thing, and that's sort of a connection she has with another captain of a different squadron. When they were in the training as children. There we go. That's what I was trying to say. The other girl would use her fire abilities to create fire flowers and just to show off them to Iris. So I figured the Florges would be a good way to represent that in her character. The Togekiss and Mawile are just really strong fairy type Pokemon. She's not really a fighter, but I figured she would need something to like strengthen her character and her team, so I gave her those two. The Azumarill is because the priestess are there to help extinguish the fire of the Infernals and send them away, so I gave her basically a water type to help extinguish the fire. Joke's on me, haha. But the Magearna is basically one that represents her actual character. She's wearing like a long like nun robe, and to me, Magearna has that like long dress metal vibe, and it's also a good strong Pokemon for her to have. Alright, next up we've got Maki. She's our first second generation fire user, and for her I gave her the psychic ability. She's more, especially her like firefighter uniform is more of like a witch aesthetic, so I gave her the psychic type for that, and also it's easier to give fire manipulation to psychic types. So with her I've got a Grumpig, a Gallade, a Slowbro, a Delphox, a Medicham, and an Oranguru. So a few of these you may be thinking that's weird, but I'll get into it. So the Grumpig, Slowbro, and Oranguru are on her team because her quirk is that people think that she's very manly, and whenever they call her out she says, am I just a big gorilla? So that's why I gave her an Oranguru, not an Oranguru. But the Slowbro and Grumpig are that same thing. They're still psychic types and they're still pretty strong. They're just sort of like jokey characters. Now, the Medicham is because she is a physical fighter, so she will punch you in the face. And that's what I needed for there, is like a physical psychic type. And then the Delphox is there basically for her witch aesthetic. It's the only like witch type Pokemon we had that would actually fit her thing. So I think that's a pretty good comparison there. And then Gallade is just like the Medicham. He's just a very strong physical psychic type, and that's what we needed. Next up is our last fire type user, and he's a second generation fire user, and it's Hinawana. Sorry if I said his name wrong. I'm not good at pronunciations. But for him, I gave him the dark type. He's a very sort of darkish type character, you would say. Every time he's one of those characters that you say something to him and then he's just like standing there just staring at you with like a dark shadow over his eyes. So I gave him the dark type, and he's also the cook, and it's also funny that he makes other people clean and cook for like help him cook, and the way he does it is very meticulous and mysterious, which is why I gave him the dark type. Alright, so for him we've got a Liepard, a Houndoom, a Morpeko, a Grimmsnarl, a Weavile, and a Sableye. I gave him a few of these. I gave him a Houndoom specifically because he is still a fire user, so I had to give him technically a fire type Pokemon. So I gave him that. It's still a dark type, but it is a fire type. The Liepard and the Grimmsnarl are there basically just as bolsters to the team. I had to give, not everybody on this team, as you've seen, really fits to either their fighting style or their design. It's just there to bolster their team, and that's those. The more Pico, on the other hand, is one that it's because of his character. He'll go from being, he doesn't really joke, but he's more like a little bit more carefree, to being serious, just like a more Pico is. It switches every turn to angry or hungry mode, and then to not hungry mode. And the Weavile or Sableye are just really strong Pokemon. The Weavile and Sableye specifically are just used for just to show that he's like strong, but he's also human. He's not as strong as Shinra and Arthur, so I gave him the Weavile because it's a glass cannon. And the Sableye is a very strong Pokemon, but it can get shut down if you do it right. And last up is the squadron captain himself, Obie. And Obie is not, he's just a regular buff dude. And but he's got a fireproof armor basically that he wears. He's got like extinguishing guns sort of thing on his arms, and he's got like shields and stuff that he can use, and he uses an axe a lot too. Obie's a really cool guy. So for him, he's very strong, he's very sturdy, and I gave him the rock type. I could have gave him a different typing that maybe like ground, maybe, to be even more effective against fire, but I wanted something that resisted fire, but not something that was totally super effective against fire. So that's why I picked rock, and I think rock actually fits him better than ground because rock is more sturdy than ground. So for his team, we've got a Rampardos, a Gigalith, a Tyranitar, a Bastiodon, a Rhyperior, and a Caracosta. So we'll just get into the ones that are here just to bolster the team. So for that, it's the Gigalith, the Tyranitar, and the Bastiodon. They're not really sort of representing. I mean, the Bastiodon is a little bit because he is wearing the mask and he is very steel type bolster, but I had to give him something, so I gave him those. The other ones, on the other hand, the Rampardos, he already charges into battle, and he's just like very physical. He'll attack you, he'll go right through an Infernal just like a Rampardos would. Tyranitar is just a really big, strong Pokemon. Rhyperior is just like the Rampardos. He's very sturdy, he doesn't want to move, but he is a very strong physical attacker. So he will take a hit, and then he'll give one back even stronger. And then the Caracosta is just like the Azumarill with Iris. I needed an extinguishing type thing, so I gave him a Caracosta, which is a water rock type Pokemon. So I know this list was a little bit faster than usual. I'm trying to work on speeding these up a little bit, trying to keep them around 12 to 15 minutes. Sorry if I don't go into every detail about the character. Specifically for this one, I don't know too much about Fire Force, but I have been keeping up with the reading, so I know a little bit about each character. If you have an anime or just any other show, it doesn't have to specifically be an anime, it could be a cartoon or whatever. If you want to make me a Pokemon list for just random people, let me know down in the comments. We'll make a Pokemon list for those. I know Bryce has got a few ideas for those that he wants to do, so you may be seeing him in front of the camera from time to time. I've got two more off the top of my head now. I'm not going to get into those because that'd be spoiling the future episodes. So just make sure you comment, like, and subscribe down below, and hit that little bell so you stay notified whenever we post one of these videos or any kind of videos we do post. So I'll catch you guys next time. Bye bye.